Seth Rollins suffered a knee injury in his match with Jinder Mahal on Raw Monday night. It happened on a lion salt. He landed flat and immediately grabbed his left knee. He finished the match. You could tell, though, something was wrong. He had to be helped to the back. He was seen limping. He got an MRI done, and Fightful Select broke the news on Friday that Rollins sustained a torn MCL and a partially torn meniscus. And as terrible as that sounds, when you hear anything, at a time when we keep hearing nonstop about torn ACLs left and right, even this week we found out that Cora Jade, who just returned to NXT, is out for a year with a torn ACL. So when you think about it like that, it could have been a lot worse. An ACL tear would have meant he misses WrestleMania for sure, and a lot more than that. Rollins tore his MCL in 2017, right around this time, in fact, and he was able to make it back in time to work Triple H at WrestleMania. PW Insider Mike Johnson says he could return from a torn meniscus if surgery is required in about 3 to 4 weeks, if he wanted to push it. Typically 4 to 6 weeks is a more likely recovery time. You know, look at Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio has not wrestled since his match with Logan Paul at Crown Jewel. Coincidentally, Logan Paul has not wrestled since his match with Rey Mysterio at Crown Jewel, but I digress. He has not wrestled since the beginning of November. He tore his meniscus. That was a full tear. And they told him 6 to 8 weeks. So he's hoping to be back in time for the Rumble next weekend. I don't know if he will be or not, but that was his hope. So by all accounts, Rollins really dodged a bullet, and he should be good for WrestleMania. WWE is said to have locked in his match already, and no surprise, not much of a spoiler here, it's going to be against CM Punk. But what if he can't make WrestleMania? We know he's not wrestling at the Royal Rumble, and this makes him very unlikely for the Elimination Chamber. But WWE has said that Rollins is going to kick off Raw tomorrow night to address his health and his future as the World Heavyweight Champion. Usually when we get an announcement like that, it's not good. What if they know something that we don't? And he can't make Mania. Or he might, but they don't want to take the chance that he can, and they decide to have him vacate the World Heavyweight Championship. I think if it looks like Seth is going to be okay for WrestleMania, there's nothing wrong with keeping him out of the ring for a couple of months to heal up and keeping the title on him. It's not ideal because we already have one champion who rarely defends. I mean, the whole point of creating the World Heavyweight title was to have someone that would be the workhorse champion, which is what Rollins calls himself. He's defended that title on every pay-per-view since he won it, with the exception of Survivor Series, and that's only because he was in War Games. Since the beginning of November, he's defended the title on television 4 times against Sami Zayn, Jey Uso, Drew McIntyre, and Jinder Mahal. He's the anti-Roman Reigns. But if they're confident that he's going to be back in time for WrestleMania, I wouldn't blow up my Mania plans just because he can't wrestle for 2 months. I think that's stupid. But that's the persona that he portrays on TV. He's a fighting champion, and if he can't fight, maybe he comes out and says, for the good of this title, I've got to hand it over. What then? Well, I mean, there are a number of different ways that this could play out. Damian Priest cashing in his Money in the Bank being the most obvious. Priest has been made to look like a fool for not cashing in at times when he should have at least tried, or trying to cash in and then being Claymore kicked in the face. If Rollins walks out there to address the audience, whether he vacates or not, why wouldn't Damian Priest grab a referee and run down to the ring to cash in? Unless Drew McIntyre, who's been a thorn in his side, maybe Drew will lock him he'll lock him in the Judgment Day clubhouse maybe. But why wouldn't he do that? Right? There's no rule about cashing in on an injured person. It's happened before. Priest is scheduled to face Drew McIntyre on Raw tomorrow night. You could have Damian Priest cash in on Seth Rollins to win the title. Seth is a fighting champion. He goes against, his better judgment. I'm going to wrestle this guy. He pays the price for it. Doesn't even have to take a bump. Well, I guess he does have to take one bump. It'd be kind of hard for him to lose in a match without taking at least one bump. But they could protect him, and he could lose the belt to Damian Priest. And then instead of doing Priest against McIntyre tomorrow night, they simply reschedule the match for the Royal Rumble and make it a championship match. And Drew McIntyre at the Royal Rumble beats Damian Priest to win the world title. Now, it gives Priest less than a week with the belt, which would be a killer for him. I mean, that would cut his balls off. You could do that, though. And then if Cody wins the Royal Rumble, he chooses Roman for WrestleMania, you do an Elimination Chamber match to decide on who challenges McIntyre at Mania, and Punk wins the Chamber, and you do Drew McIntyre against CM Punk for the World Heavyweight title. I'm not really a fan of the first half of this idea because it does cut Priest's legs out from under him. But what I do like as a plan B is getting to Drew McIntyre defending the World Heavyweight title against CM Punk at WrestleMania. Now, it may not have the marquee value that Rollins against Punk would have had, but they had a great verbal joust a couple of weeks ago on TV. McIntyre's been putting in the best work of his career. I think it's better to crown a new champion either in the Royal Rumble match or inside the Elimination Chamber next month. That's how I would do it. I don't see anything wrong with putting the world title on the line in the Men's Rumble match. If he had to vacate less than a week out from the Royal Rumble, why not? Why not? And if you're worried about a SmackDown talent possibly winning the title, they opened the door to that by including SmackDown talent in the tournament to crown a new champion in the first place. So by their own logic, if a SmackDown star were to win, they would be automatically drafted over to Monday Night Raw. But all of the probable winners are from the Raw side anyway. Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Gunther, Sami Zayn, who's not in the Rumble yet that we know of, but he will be. They're all Raw guys. Have Drew win the Rumble, have him win the title, and then they can use the Chamber to decide on a challenger either for Drew's title or for Roman's title. And whichever one they choose, you just find some other way to crown a number one contender for the other belt. I don't know what's going on with Cody with all this talk about Rock and Roman. It should still be Cody and Roman at WrestleMania. That should be the destination. But putting the title on the line in the Rumble, it's been done before. You could do it. It's been done twice. You could do it again if need be. But I like the idea of McIntyre against Punk as a fallback if Rollins is out of WrestleMania. But it should be with McIntyre defending and Punk challenging, not the other way around. I would not throw the world title on CM Punk. This man has not even worked a televised match yet. So maybe have Punk beat McIntyre and then have Damian Priest cash in to win the title. You could do that at WrestleMania too. Now, conversely, you could put the title up in the Elimination Chamber, and you can promote that we're guaranteed to have a new World Heavyweight Champion crowned. If CM Punk wins the Royal Rumble, Drew McIntyre could win the Chamber. Punk then chooses McIntyre for WrestleMania. And if Cody wins the Rumble, you find some other way to get Punk in there as number one contender. Now, some of you have also suggested the name Gunther to me. Just crown Gunther as the new World Heavyweight Champion in the Chamber and make him a double champion. That doesn't work because Gunther said back in October that he is not allowed to leave the United States for the next 6 months because of their residency restrictions. The Chamber is in Australia, so he's not going to be on that show unless WWE can pull some strings and speed things up. I mean, I know sometimes they work their magic when it comes to people's visa applications. It doesn't look like Gunther, though, is going to be at the Elimination Chamber. So that doesn't work. What about having Gunther win the Royal Rumble? Putting the title up in the Chamber, having Brock Lesnar win the championship. I know some people are going to shudder at that idea. Again, we're just talking ideas here because there's been rumors of Brock and Gunther. Brock is on his way back. Brock could be back as soon as this week. And they might do Brock and Gunther at WrestleMania, maybe for the Intercontinental title. If they have to call an audible, what if? What if Gunther wins the Rumble, Brock is in the Chamber, he wins the title, and Gunther then chooses to face Brock Lesnar, his dream opponent, at WrestleMania, and Brock drops the belt to Gunther. And then, coming out of WrestleMania, Gunther surrenders the Intercontinental title and they put it up in a tournament. I still think he should lose it to someone, but that's me. But that's another way they could go. It would not be my first choice, but I don't hate the idea either. So long as Gunther beats Brock at WrestleMania, that is the key. I don't hate the idea. Now, you also have people, half joking, and some of them are not joking, about WWE should pick up the bat phone and call Stone Cold Steve Austin and throw millions of dollars at him to do Punk against Austin at WrestleMania, if Rollins is out. And then you just do something else with the World Heavyweight title. Punk doesn't even have to challenge for the World Heavyweight title. If they do Punk against Austin, it's headlining night 1. And if Rock is wrestling Roman, that's headlining night 2. Do we really need Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock headlining both nights of WrestleMania in 2024? No, we do not. At a time when the product is hot and they have more over babyfaces on top than they have had in decades, the one time they don't need to break glass in the event of an emergency and rely on one of the old timers, they're going to headline with 2 of them? That would be awful. That is not the answer. One or the other maybe, but not both. That is not the solution. I think Seth's going to be okay though for WrestleMania. I think they're going to want to stick with Rollins and Punk as the direction. That's my feeling. Seth Rollins is going to do everything in his power to not miss that show. He knows this may finally be his chance to get a true WrestleMania main event, not a cash-in, not a 90-second main event. He wants to be able to go out there in a featured, promoted main event and close out the show. This is a huge spot for him. He's not going to give that up without putting up a fight. But that opening segment tomorrow night now becomes must-see because it could have major implications for WrestleMania.